Can you hear me now? Is that helping any? Hopefully that worked. If you guys can hear me now, just, yeah, let me know. Oh, good. Okay. Yay! I apparently need to have my camera on, but not on, because I'm not fit for human consumption right now. So, okay. Oh. And then let me find out where I can hear myself. Okay. Cool. I'll figure this out. Huzzah! Dragon Lady and the Izzy. Yes. Exactly. Boy, I said a whole bunch of stuff and y'all couldn't hear me, so. I'm attempting a new, this is a new service for streaming. I'm simultaneously screaming? Well, I am now. Streaming to Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So if there's any of those platforms that you prefer, definitely check those out. It's all DragonLadyArt, but when I create the graphic for the live stream this week, I'll, for the official live stream, I'll make sure to add those on there. And you can follow me in all the places. So I'm working on my iPad here. I started working on the iPad seriously last year, since I had my gallbladder removed, and it was just about physically impossible for me to sit at my desk. So I switched over to working on the iPad. So far I've been enjoying it. I love watercolor. I miss watercolor. Unfortunately, watercolor takes a lot of time to do things like setup. So setting up would be about an hour in order to get all the paints ready and that kind of stuff. So I have decided to do most of the work through iPad now. The timing isn't great since AI is becoming a thing, and I actually have to add to my applications when I apply for art shows that I don't work with AI, or my work is not AI, and I have video to prove it, so. No gallbladders, yay! I didn't realize how sick I was for a very long time, and then I got it out, and I was like, holy moly, I feel amazing. So what I'm doing here is I'm deciding on the shape and direction that I want the scales to go in, and where I want them to go. And starting with these directional shape lines helps me draw them in later. And that way you just don't get kind of goofy cross-hatching. Are you on the computer, iPad? Also, what programs do you use to create your dragons? Thank you so much. This is iPad, and I use Procreate. It is an incredibly powerful tool for what it is. It's a buy once program, which you don't see too much anymore. So once you have it, you have it. It's not like a monthly fee or a weekly fee like a lot of the programs are. And it is an incredibly powerful tool. So, and then I have an Apple Pencil. The iPad I'm working on is the iPad Pro from 2020. But you can get Procreate and an Apple Pencil to work on a standard, not the Pro, but like the base model of iPads. The only thing is you're pretty limited in like the amount of layers you can use and how big of a file you can create. So the file that I'm working on for this guy, we can take a look at that. So it's 12 inches by 18 inches at 400 dpi, and I can get 15 layers out of it. So here pretty quick I'm gonna have to start smashing down layers. If I hit my max layer point and I don't want to smash down or lose what's underneath, I'll actually copy and paste it and then flatten the layers and continue working on a new image. So if I have to go back and change something on a different layer, I can still access the original file. But yeah, up until last year I was pretty much exclusively watercolor. Thanks, Carly. Yeah, the one payment's really nice. I do pay monthly for Photoshop, because even though I work here in Procreate, there is things Procreate isn't great for, like resizing images or cleaning up or adding like black background blurs and stuff like that. So I do still need Photoshop for a few things. The $10 a month fee for base Photoshop doesn't really bother me too much. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I could never afford to buy the whole suite at, you know, $1,200 or whatever it was. So $10 for me is much more accessible. Canva I used to create business cards. I like Canva too, yeah. I do use that for, as you said, business cards, and I have a IP that I pitch to various companies, so I've designed the slideshow in Canva as well. And that is, Canva is a surprisingly powerful program for what it is. So it's really hard for me to talk and draw at the same time, so I'm using two different parts of the brain. Funny story, on this program you double tap the screen to undo. Oops, I undid one too many. And with two fingers. And last time I painted in watercolor, I kept tapping my watercolor canvas with my two fingers trying to get myself to undo stuff. It doesn't work in watercolor. So all these are basically scaffolding lines, and they'll go away once I start in with the adding in the shadows. Krita works. Yeah, I've heard good things about Krita. I need to try it. I've also done, oh shoot. There's another one that's really popular that's trying to take over Photoshop. I use their publishing program for my book layouts and stuff, and I cannot remember what it's called now. But I tried using their Photoshop equivalent, and I could not get the hang of it, so I've used Photoshop for probably close to 20 years now. It's hard to make the change. I've never used Krita directly, but I've heard good stuff about it. So seeing how this is working, I'm going to try to get back into streaming a couple of times a week. For sure I'll have an announcement of like an official one, maybe Thursday afternoons or something like that, but then I may pop in and out as I sit down and work. I would like to have more options. Yay! Hi, how are you? I haven't heard from you in so long, Becca. Dragons and Beasties is awesome. Yeah, every time I do this, I swear I'm not going to do scales. I'm going to find some magical cheat that's going to make it easier, and I haven't found one yet. I've gotten close. There's actually a brush set. That's the other thing I like about this, is there's so many brushes. There's a brush set that's dragon scales. Is it this one? It's this one. Yeah. So these are all different dragon scales, which is fun. The problem is they're only, like, the highlight is only on one side. So sometimes I'll use them if I'm struggling with an area, but for the most part, I don't use it too often. This is the first time I've streamed, Becca, in like probably almost 2 years. Thanks, Queen of Scales, yay! Yeah, this is the flagship stream here. I'm just testing my streaming service. Another artist. I was in Vegas 2 weeks ago for the licensing expo. Becca, you should totally do the licensing expo. You'd probably do really, really well. If you have questions, message me. But there was another artist there, and he was talking about how he streams using Restream.io, and then he told me that it streams everywhere. So I was like, sweet. Yeah, I was mentioning it earlier, but I was actually hacked, and I couldn't access my business account for like the last 2 months. So thanks, Renee. I'm glad to be back too. I said between gallbladder and just life stress and so many ands. It's been rough. But I'm finally getting my feet back underneath me, and I can finally start normalizing and doing things regularly. In the last year, I had my gallbladder out, and I was diagnosed with ADHD, which explains so much. And a few other things in there, but things are finally stable for the first time in a while, so I'm hoping that I can get back to doing some things on the regular and not just when I can get around to it. See, exactly. You should always turn lemons into dragons. Always. If you want to see a lemon dragon, I'm sure Stanley Morrison has one. He does fruit and vegetable dragons that are pretty cute. Okay, that's a little wide there, so I'm going to curve that down a little bit. Let's put them on the right layer. Kind of get an idea of the color scheme I'm going with here. There's a star. Let's see if I can do this. There's a star that's going to be up here. And then you can kind of see the light bar that comes down. And then all the planets and stuff at the bottom, so that's what I'm going for. In the mood to draw dragons, I need to figure out the stream. Hey CJ, thank you. I appreciate you too. I'm glad to be back. Hey Alan, message me if you have questions about streaming. I'm new at the Restream.io, but I've streamed for a couple of years now, so I swear I just did this like 2 months ago, and now I've got to relearn everything because I always forget how to do it. Add another layer. I'll make it a clipping mask. Do some tutorials here. If you don't know or don't work in digital, clipping mask is useful because it allows you to attach it to whatever's underneath it. So now you won't go out of the lines underneath. And that's usually how I do a lot of the working. So multiply. Do some shadows on the scallion. Hey Jason, yeah, back again. Glad to be here. Do you do all the sketch and layout for your images digitally, or do you start with a sketchbook for ideas? Both. It depends on where I'm at. If I can't take my iPad with me or something like that, I'll do it on paper, and then I'll take a screen or a photo of what I've worked on and transfer it digitally. This one I can show you. This is my underlayers sketch. Let's see. I'm going to collapse that down because that's the final drawing. So you can see very, very messily where it starts. So I usually start with a rough thumbnail. This one I didn't start with a thumbnail, I just went right into the rough sketching. Yeah, and I did that all digitally. I didn't quite know where I wanted to go with this piece, I just know I wanted to paint another space dragon, because space dragon. So I started with the basic sketch, which is the dark brown layer. Get rid of all this other stuff. Oops, not that one. So I started with that, and then I kind of had an idea of like the color palette and stuff. So I went ahead and made a mood board for it, using dragons from other people. I really like that one. And the color palette that I wanted, and that helped inform the rest of it. This may change. I'm still not entirely sure how much I like the planets and stuff inside of it, but I did one, let's see, this is the one that I just released on Patreon this morning. That's finished. It does not look great on this screen, but you kind of get an idea. And this one started with these thumbnails, which is done digitally. If I have an idea, I'll pick up the iPad and I'll scratch them in, and then write really terrible, poorly spelled notes and whatnot. Holy moly, we did meet at Anime Expo in 2011. Becca, that was so long ago. That was the year I bought a dice dragon from you, and the hotel staff stole it. I was not happy. But I have the trade we did still, so that's... I've got my dice dragon back. I'm happy. Gosh, it's been so long. It's hard to believe that I've been doing shows for that long. I don't feel that old. Where do you get your inspiration from and to incorporate backdrop into the dragons together? I get my inspiration from anywhere and anything, really. If I'm feeling a little art blocky, I'll get on Pinterest, and I have some pretty extensive Pinterest boards. I look at other dragons from other artists. I look at live animals, bats. I like wing shapes, so I'll check out a lot of like bat pictures, wildlife pictures, things like that. I get inspiration from anywhere. I've been watching TV shows and something weird will flash on the screen and my brain will convert it into something else, and that'll be a new painting. I mean, it's that simple. Art block is not something I have too much of a problem with. Thank goodness. I know I'm fortunate in that regard. I love seeing how other people's creative process works. Your work has a lot of whimsy in it. Thank you. Yeah, I like whimsical things. I like pretty and bright and things like that. Oh, to answer the second half of your question, the backdrop and the dragons together. That's one of the reasons I paint dragons, is because I can stick them anywhere. If I decide that day that I want to paint a forest, I can put a dragon in it. If I, yeah, you can pretty much fit them in anywhere and they'll still fit my work. I'm on a complete space kick right now because I love space. So this is probably the 6th or 7th space dragon I've painted in a row as of late. So that's, I like space. And I have for a very long time, so okay, I think we're going to use, get in there with an airbrush and make it small. Oops, somebody's dinging me. Let's turn off my Apple Watch. Thank you, Becca. I couldn't even begin to tell you what it is about space, but I just freaking love it. The colors and the movement, and yeah. The new Webb telescope is amazing. There's such cool stuff coming from that. This is going to be fun. I've got basically 2 different light sources. I've got the star. That's not going to work. I've got the star up here, and then I've got the light source from the chest that will come out. When I work, I have to work in sections. I've tried where I've just added in like all the major shadows and then gone into the detail work, and I end up goofing it all up. Hi Sarah, thank you. Renee. Star Wars Marathon, perfect. Yes, absolutely. And I do silly stuff like that. Let's get off the right layer here. Always check your layers, kids. Lock that. Now I can't mess it up again. I think I'm gonna get rid of the color. There we go. Now I can see what I'm doing a little better. The layer struggle is real. Seriously. Nothing like working for an hour and goofing up one little thing and realizing you're on the wrong darn layer. Unlimited info button. Oh, okay. Yes. I was like, is there some secret to this that I don't know? Needs a TARDIS in the background. I agree. Luckily, I can Photoshop that in later. Everything needs a TARDIS in it. I'm a bad nerd. I haven't watched any of the newer Doctor Who's. If I'm not careful, I'll have my nerd card revoked. The little duck. It's always interesting how messy this is until you get close to it being done, and then all of a sudden it's like it comes together all at once. One in the back. Like really, really faint so you can barely see it. I agree. Drawing and illustrating dragons is like a nerd backstage pass. Shadows, layering the detail, not to mention on angles, contour lines, curves, and so on. What's the most difficult to put in when you're... Can you clarify your question for me, Jason? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, overall, in general, I think the most difficult thing for me is probably like the concepting and clarifying what it is I want to do. After I get that done, it's a pretty smooth ride. How I work in particularly... Okay, cool, thank you. I want to make sure I got it right. Yeah, honestly, concepting for me is probably the most difficult, and the final drawing. Once I start laying in color, for the most part, I pretty much have exactly what I want to do in my head. So I'm basically transferring what's in my head onto the surface I'm working on, whether that's digital or watercolor. If I don't have it fully formed in my head, then I can't paint it. I have to be able to see it before I start working on it. I think that's probably the reason I tend to work in clusters. So when I get an idea, like I said, I'm on a Space Dragon kick right now, so probably the next 3 or 4 paintings will be Space Dragons, because I get a concept and then I get another and another and another, and I work in series that way. Kind of once you have an understanding of what you're doing, and my understanding isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's basically too dark, coloring in the lines. Colors where I get lost, usually too much of a draftsman and a penciler. I totally understand that. And I think we all, first off, I have a puppy at my feet. I think we all definitely go through that. Pencil is still like my one true love. I have thought about going back to just pencil work so many times. And just, yeah, just playing with that. I haven't in a really long time, but I used to do a lot of wildlife in pencils. Color is a lot to think about, because you have like your whole color palette, and then you have like what colors go well together and which ones don't. Complementary colors, analogous colors, all that other good stuff. Which for the most part comes along with, practice. The digital is nice working that way because it does make things a little easier in some regards. One of them being color picking and the undo button, of course. But I can find and select a color palette and make that decision before I start, when in watercolors you have to have an incredibly intimate knowledge of the paints and how they work with each other and things like that. With digital, you're not working with or against your media. Watercolor, even down to the different brands of paint, the paints have different characteristics. Some are staining, some are transparent, some cannot be layered, some are granulating. And unless you really have a good understanding and grasp of your particular paint, it's going to be really hard to get where you're going. I always tell people the best practice you can ever get is playing with your stuff, playing with your whatever your chosen media is, so that way you don't. I mean, I know every artist has done this, where they get new paints or tools or whatever, and they sit down and they have this big epic painting in their head all planned out, and then it doesn't go well. And usually it's not anything on the artist, it's just a lack of understanding of your tools. I know I am very guilty of that and have been many times. Anchored hearts, I have a hard time getting away from bold outlines. I was a big outliner when I was younger. It took me quite a while to break free with that. I love your work, Becca. It's awesome. I think your stuff is so cute. And not just the sculptural stuff, your actual illustrations are super adorable. They're so much fun. I love the little cartoons you were doing there. we're getting somewhere. Really plan it out. Yeah. I do if I'm working in a traditional media, absolutely. Plan, 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 plan. Let's plan and play. Those are the best things you can do. What the history of drawing, painting, printing? What's the weirdest thing you did? That's a really good question. I say no to a lot of stuff. We'll start there. I have attended furry cons. I've had booths at furry cons. Furries are super nice. The bulk of furries are super nice. I have had some interesting requests that I have turned down. As far as actually painting weird stuff. Let's see. I've been asked to do pony personas. That's another thing I've turned down. I had somebody commission me to do their family portrait as dragons, which was interesting. It was fun, but it's probably not something I'll do again. That's not really where my forte lies, but they were friends, so I was happy to do that one. I was asked to do a large butterfly sculpture on the side of somebody's building. That kind of fell through. I've done wedding portraits before as dragons and as other animals. Because I do the oracle decks and my work tends to skew a little more on the metaphysical side, I get asked to draw people's particular dragons a lot. I always tell them to have their dragon get in line, and if it comes to me, I'll draw it. It can get... Commissions are hard because you never know if what you do is what the person's going to like. And I have had the bad commissions where they've wanted fix after fix after fix, or change after change after change, and you end up spending your entire time changing and adjusting when they really didn't know what they wanted in the first place. Favorite thing to draw outside of dragons? There's things outside of dragons? The space backgrounds, which is why they end up in my work so much. Flowers and butterflies, really. That's why I did the deck and now the book, which is almost done. It's really dark in there. Okay, what I'm doing is really subtle, so I don't know how much of it you guys can see, but come on. There is. Yes, exactly. Only dragons. The snail dragons I'm having entirely too much fun with. There will definitely be large paintings of that. I'm going to go back and reference something really quick. Okay. I thought that looked really cool without the color in it. Do some ghosty dragons like that. But I am having a lot of fun with the butterflies and the snails and the bugs. I'll clean up some of these lines in here. Make sure the right ones overlap in the right place. I think I enjoy just trying to get dragons into different places. So my bug dragons are vastly different from my big dragons, and I really like seeming to put them in places where they make sense, where they might not have made sense previously. And like I said, it gives me the option to do like other things. So if I want to paint a forest scene that week, I can do that. Elsie, I want the book. Yes, I want the book done. Excuse me, I want the book finished. I have technically been working on the book for 3 years. And I am behind sending it to the publisher by about 1.5 years. But between 2020 and gallbladder, there was just nothing I can do. So, do you have any big projects coming up? The Language of Flowers Illustrated Dictionary is the biggest one that's happening that I'm almost done with. After that, I have there's a few things. I have another Oracle deck that I want to do based on the Japanese koi dragons, and I have some non-dragony stuff that I am doing. I'm doing some children illustration stuff. Ooh, I can show you guys. I'm doing some animals in space. Let's see if I can remember where they're at. I think it's pattern illustration. Yeah. So animals in space with spacesuits. These are for licensing mainly. I had them in Vegas. The show that I just attended, oof, big files. The show that I attended 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas was the licensing expo. So I go with my agent, and companies are there, and they're looking for artwork and characters and stuff to put on their products. So a one-up for manufacturing. And these guys were on my my banner and got a lot of attention. So these are the new pieces for that. And then I've got some sea life pieces in here too that were... So I'm stepping into children's illustration a little bit. I don't know if I'll do children's illustration of books. That doesn't really have a lot of interest to me. But surface design and home decor is what I'm interested in. So I'll be doing some stuff with that. And then I have my own children's IP that I'm working on of baby dragons. And I actually managed to pitch to some fairly big companies in Vegas for the Little Wings dragons. So hopefully something pans out there. If not, I have a direction of where I'm going to take them next. So I always have a couple of big projects going on, probably more than I should. There's only so many hours in the day. So if anyone can figure out how to get more, then let me know. I'm sure Becca knows what it's like. Thanks, Alan. Busy, busy. The expo is a lot of fun, and I have a really good agent, and I get to hang out with a bunch of really cool artists. Ruth Thompson was there this year, and Jasmine Beckett Griffith, and Tom Wood. They're all pretty amazing. Sounds like I need a holiday more than anything. You know, the licensing expo was my holiday. I actually was, even though it was a working holiday, I got to spend time with, I said, some amazing artists and do some cool stuff. So I feel really recharged from that. But I have ADHD, so having a lot of things going on at once means that I actually get some stuff done. Because if I wake up in the morning and have no desire whatsoever to work on one project, I can go work on another. that I guess is one of the ADHD superpowers or whatever people joke around about. But I'm never bored. Never, ever, ever bored. Which is completely worth it, so. Though my husband would agree with you. That's as a working artist, you travel so much for shows. I mean, I currently have, oh my gosh, how many more shows do I have? I've done 2 shows this year. The beginning of the year was a little light for me. I've got a few more that I'll pick up next year. But I'm signed up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shows starting in September for sure. September through November is my busiest season. And so I travel a lot. It's just, for art shows. I get to somewhere, I see the inside of my hotel room, I see the inside of, or the outside of wherever it is that I'm doing a show, and that's pretty much it. I don't get out too much. And I'm doing less and less cons now. I'm focusing back towards Renaissance fairs. That seems to be where people are at. In fact, I just sent my application for the Kansas City Renaissance Fair. I can't afford or want to be away from home for 8 weeks, so I don't do the big multiple weekend Ren fairs, but they do guest weekends. So I applied to do one or two, hopefully, their guest weekends. Yeah. So between that and then the making of the art, that's a lot. Oh, I will. I'll totally get overwhelmed. I usually do. I do try to negate it. I do take days off. Vegas was a lot for me, so I ended up I took almost a full week off, and then this past week I've been kind of on light duty and moving very, very slowly. But next week I should be able to get into the swing of things. I know I was going to poke you and see if you wanted to get together if I got in or not, Alan. It would be cool to hang out and game. Gaming would be cool. Yeah, my husband's fully supportive, so he works a full-time job, so he can't go with me to too many shows, but he can do things like load and unload the van, which is nice. He's on print duty, so he will bag and back prints, or package stuff, or make magnets and that kind of stuff, which is nice. So he's useful to have around. Thank goodness. But overwork is my middle name. Kidding, not kidding. But I have gotten better. A lot better. Gosh, 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago now, I completely overworked myself. I was working a full-time job, and I had 6 shows in 8 weeks across 4 states. So I was working 2 days a week, going home, packing for the show, leaving, driving usually 9 to 10 hours because I'm in the middle of nowhere, doing the show Saturday, Sunday, getting home Monday, working Tuesday, Wednesday, getting off Thursday, reloading the car or making stock in the evenings or whatever. And I did that for 6 weeks. And then I had a Halloween party that year. And Becca, that was the year we went to DragonCon, or not to DragonCon, to BlizzCon, and saw you guys. And I had a total meltdown panic attack. It was the first time I've ever had a panic attack. And it was not fun. If you can avoid doing that, avoid doing that. And for a couple of years afterwards, I continually had panic attacks and anxiety attacks. So now I really am extra careful about how much work I do and what I take on and how many shows I do in a row. I try not to do more than 2 weekends in a month. And if I can avoid that, I will. That's kind of why I'm doing the children's illustration, is to hopefully get some more licensing going so I don't have to do quite so many shows. Yeah. My husband gets really good raises at work. Unfortunately, he gets a raise and then inflation goes up, so that makes it a little difficult. Girlfriend helps bag and board. Yes. Yes, it does. I'm glad she's able to help you, Alan. That's awesome. It makes a huge difference when I can just plop prints in front of him and go, here, do this. And he can sit in front of the TV and watch TV and do it for me, so. There's a few small local shows, but New Mexico doesn't seem to have a whole heck of a lot here, so that can get a little annoying. There's an alien convention in Roswell that was last weekend that I wanted to do but completely forgot about. Gosh darn it. I saw them post, they were like, well, that's a wrap, great weekend, and I was like, argh, I totally wanted to try that show. It's local for me, so I wouldn't have to do too much. So you guys can see how tedious this can get. I love it. I wouldn't want to do anything else, but it's definitely hours and hours and hours of just one scale at a time. I do find the digital stuff takes me longer than the watercolor did, and I'm assuming it's just because I can fiddle with it more. Watercolor, once you get it down, it's down, and there's no going back. But digital, if I don't like something, I can hit undo as many times as I want. I have super patience. Just with art. I don't have children. And that's kind of by choice. I have mad respect for people who have kids. Holy moly, that is a difficult job. And then having kids and being an artist, yeah, whoa. That's more than I could handle. But I definitely like the kind of zone out aspect of this type of work. Unless I'm under a deadline, and then it's problematic. Alrighty guys, I'm going to need to skedaddle on out, but thank you for hanging out with me. I'll give you a rough idea of the direction I'm going in. This black here, I'm going to have to lighten a little bit so people can see what I'm doing as far as the shadows and stuff goes. So that'll be lightened. But other than that, it'll just be cranking away at this. Have I ever done angry splatter art? I have not, but I've looked into pour art because I find that fascinating. Well, no, that's not true. I was a kid, kind of late 80s, early 90s, when the splatter pattern was pretty popular. I did do a bunch of it then. How long do you think the art pieces take? I can tell you, my last piece. Oof, my iPad's feeling hot. Canvas information. So this is also kind of useful. Statistics. So the last piece took me 34 hours, 28 minutes. And I made 38,000 strokes. So, I don't know if that's handy or not, knowing how much time I spend on these, but yeah. Usually around 40 hours. That's pretty average for some of these pieces, so. But, thank you guys. I'm glad you got to hang out. I appreciate it. I will be announcing the official streaming time here soon. So I'm thinking Thursday afternoons and maybe Sunday morning, something like that. I'll try to get into a week. I take Tuesday, Wednesdays off, so I probably won't get too much further on this. So when I come back, I'll probably pick up where I left off, pretty close to it. And yeah, you guys have a great night. Thank you for hanging out with me, and we will see you in a couple of days. Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye, guys.